look, we're not going to sugarcoat this. That race was shit. We're still going to talk about it though, and we're gonna get right on with the Imola F1 race, and then actually get to the fun stuff, which is the F2 and the F3. So this,
Yeah.
this is the weakest race I think we've had all year, unfortunately. It's frustrating as well because it had so much potential. There was, McLaren and Ferrari both had pace. Red Bull was struggling, and then it just ended up with a Max win in the end, and no real overtakes, and nothing really happened. I mean, we'll go into little bits and pieces, but I'm curious how you. I mean, I already know how you saw it. You sent me a little voice clip last night, yeah. But I'm curious how you saw it in maybe retrospect. So.
Yeah. I guess there's two pieces. One, I guess heading in, I was actually quite excited, and I suppose it was a combination of maybe, rose-tinted glasses thinking we had good events here in the past, but I think
Weather
the last great
helped.
race that we had here was because it was a wet to dry race.
Yeah.
And that
Which are
actually
always
made it
good.
really exciting and difficult, and we're also in the midst of a title fight, and it was, we had the
True.
Bottas-Russell collision, so it's probably thinking about all that. It also probably doesn't help that everyone was going, well, at least here you often get a safety car randomly, which can change things up.
Yeah, the whole 100%
But
chance of safety car.
Exactly, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And then finally off the back of that, like Max strong. I guess we can take away that this did affirm that McLaren and Ferrari aren't that far away. Like Max throughout the whole weekend, you felt like, again, we've said this in the past, but there's some races where he just gets like 10 seconds out in front and he just cruises.
Yep.
He has no reason to push. You feel like he had to earn this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so unlike his teammate, which did get some points, but really was completely off the ball for the whole weekend, crashing in practice, qualifying nowhere, running off in the race, not able to overtake. So again, Max, like you could argue a few areas that maybe he could have put better, but he was, under pressure. He had to put in a great quality lap and easily couldn't have had, a pole from at least two cars, potentially a few more, if you discount Piastri. It would have been imagine if Piastri got the pole and then he falls back. It would have been so much worse. But and arguably either the Ferraris might have pulled something else out as well. So, but unfortunately, given this track, then we knew that, if he was overtaken at the start, and it's how things turned out. If he had been overtaken, we might have still not had many passes, but still had a very tense, enjoyable race in terms of Max, chasing whoever it is for the whole race for the lead. And, at least as we went to the end of the race, we saw that Norris was actually able to catch up and basically finished with Max. And Max wasn't saying, I just let him catch up. He was like, no, even till the end, he was like gunning for it. We saw him celebrate his pole. I don't remember the last time he celebrated a pole.
True.
He got out. He was, as if any other driver got their first pole, be going, yes. Max was like, yes. Like, he was like, you could feel he was like, damn, like, he
You feel like
that.
he almost was not expecting it. Like with
Yes.
I don't know. I was obviously always expecting it. You always expect a Max pole, but given how it was leading up to that point and how close, particularly the McLarens were, and Leclerc was super, super quick as well and threatening that spot. It's like all it takes is one of these guys to do something to bop his lap, and and this is exactly what I said in the preview as well. It's like maybe they, Ferrari, they get that one lap pace, they get Leclerc on pole.
Yep.
Maybe they can hold it out for the win. And if it wasn't for that first sector, he probably would have had pole. He was 14th down that first sector and ended up only a 10th behind.
Both flobbed it so hard, and the rest of their lap was so good.
I know.
So,
I know.
but yes, as we say, it's a shame that this track actually, even just as a circuit, because you think this place is pretty cool, but then now we're going, oh, that was pretty bad.
It's pretty dire, yeah.
There's some, of course, with the calendar being so compact and the fact you actually have two Italian Grand Prix, and it's not like, although it's nice to have the Tifosi here, even on the Saturday, it still didn't seem like it was that busy. So I feel like this isn't, like a mega sellout Grand Prix and as big as like US events are, which are now gargantuan in size and turnout, right? Which maybe makes it a little dire for the future. some discussion about could they modify the track? Could they take out, for example, the second chicane in Sector 1? There's an argument where even if cars are close heading into T1, sometimes they're still close, but that second chicane, you basically can't overtake in unless you've got so much momentum, which we saw, like you're in 20 laps fresher rubber, that you can just send it because the other guy's like, I've got nothing, just go past, right?
Yeah, and even then, it's a big move. Like, I know we saw it in, I saw Gabriele Mini do it in F2 as well, and it's a good move. It's a tough move,
and you need to trust the other guy, because the other guy could just say "fub off," and then one of you is ending off in the dirt somewhere. I think so. There's an argument to say, do they extend that down to the corner, because then you've got a heavier braking zone into the hairpin as well. I guess
there was also a talk of the Ravazzas at the end, because they're fourth, fifth gear corners. It's like because it's not a hard braking zone. You can't overtake there,
and there's a fair run down there, but you're not. You're then more focusing on your exit.
It's a downhill braking zone, and we've seen errors there all weekend.
Yes.
And yet we still didn't see overtaking, because you just take it at
other than someone just running off and people overtake because you were just diddling around in the dirt.
So,
so, as I say, if for the positive side is that it genuinely seemed like on pace, Norris basically did finish with him at the end. And Max, admitted afterwards saying he was gunning the whole way. So makes us hopeful that in future circuits, maybe not next weekend, but other circuits out there, that it's again less likely we can just almost just fob it off as we have the first few races. At least we can hope.
I think that was again in our preview we talked about, like, even if it's not even if Red Bull win, if it's not a runaway, that still gives us the hope that it is close. If it was a runaway here, like it was shaping up to be initially in the race, where I think Max got like 6 seconds on Norris, everyone was within a couple of seconds of each other, and it's like, well, this is Formula One's dead. Let's just come back in 2026 and go from there. But and I'm gonna put my hand up and say I did not watch the last 20 laps of the race. I was asleep and I didn't catch up, but I did read that Norris did catch quite considerably. I read that Max's tires just completely fell out of the window from like lap 40 onwards, and he was losing like half a second a lap to Lando. So for all the talk at the start of the season with Red Bull, how they had the negative tire wear, or like there's just no tire issues, and
they said they almost wouldn't need to stop it theoretically.
Yeah, exactly. For all that talk, it's not quite as clear cut for them. They
might not be the top dog for wear,
because
the McLarens are pretty good on these tires.
Miami as well, where they struggled with tire wear.
It's true.
So they're not quite as strong as they or anyone else expected to be. So I think that could,
or even stronger across. I think the element was across tire compounds, like we saw again in Miami when they ended on the harder tire, and the Red Bull just couldn't fire it up. And even in this case, in the second stint, like Lando seemed to be somewhat complaining on pace, and he was being caught up on, but it might just be the general characteristic of the car, where it might not allow him to push that hard, but then it returns in dividends because it's not also burning through the tire when the Ferraris dropped off, and then ultimately Max was falling right into his grasp and he was flying out there. Of course, we say that, but then when Piastri went out in his tires, he was setting fastest laps, so maybe he then over-pushed the envelope, and then, he was definitely a symptom of not being able to overtake. I mean, he still got a fourth, but he could have been higher if he didn't get stalled.
That's turning into
kind of twice out.
Turning into something, the whole Science Piastri thing, isn't it? It's a couple of weekends.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, but he, like you say, he was quick at the start of the race, and it's almost like, had he started P2, could he have at least?
He did out-qualify Norris almost to get that pole. He was deadly close on merit.
Very, very close. But
again, when we talked about a weekend where I guess we're seeing if certain storylines or drivers have picked it up, it's good to see that he seems to be now carrying that consistency forward. Seems like Ferrari's a bit of a question mark. Like they, of course, after the race downplayed things a little bit, going, maybe people overhype things up, whatever. But I feel like you need a few different tracks to see these things play out when there's a big upgrade.
I still think they're pretty close, hey? Like, looking at their pace.
They weren't miles off at all.
Did you see that? You see in free practice and the qualifying is on the medium tires versus the soft tires. Like, they were able to fire those tires up and get them within a tenth of soft tire runners in McLaren and Red Bull, and it's like, I was seeing that in Q1. I'm like, oh my god, this should be easy pole, but again, it's Ferrari on that soft tire. For some reason,
it seems very hard.
It's such a narrow window that they have to, there's always. They always just push it a bit too hard. We saw with Leclerc, losing half a second in that first sector, manages to recover it in the second and third sector to get,
to show the potential, but it's still not a full.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you've got to be right on it, because in that final lap that Max is going to be on it. Yeah. So even if you have a strong car, you have to absolutely nail it, because he will, in that moment under pressure, just pull out
He's done it time
beauty,
and time again. Yeah.
And this was just another bit of proof for that.
Yeah.
So
and thanks to I guess Max should be saying really thanks to Hulkenberg. He gave him that slipstream down the main straight.
It seemed to be a bit of a gentleman's handshake. I believe Hulkenberg used Max on his lap to get into Q3. So even though it could have been a bit, why did you help him? He seemed to also go, actually, I saw him there and he helped me. So I was happy to return the favor. Bit of a chummy moment there.
Right, yeah, okay. So if you want to blame anyone for this race, blame Hulkenberg. Send all your hate mail to Nico Hulkenberg.
Max in Q2 thinking ahead, going, hold on, I'm going to help this guy, and he will return the favor to give me the boost.
Yep.
For DJs.
Yeah, thinking ahead. But I mean, the only driver we haven't really... we sort of talked about him. We need to talk about Checo, don't we? Like... We're talking about all these drivers, both McLarens, both Ferraris, and Max, being up there and challenging for pole. And where's Checo? Where is he?
Yeah. And you go, oh, he's 3/10 behind. What was the gap to like first to 10th? Oh, it was like
three tenths. Yeah. Yep.
At some point, I think even we had another one where, outside of Alonso, which you wouldn't expect there normally, first to 19th was like a second.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that's close.
Yeah. So we were chatting about this offline as well, and I feel like we must have mentioned this because we obviously talk about Checo quite a lot. But it was always Checo's been saved by the fact that the Red Bull is so dominant, and the second that it's not quite so dominant and other teams start closing up, Checo needs to stand up and he needs to be up there, because at the moment he's not. And it's clear that even 3/10 now is you don't make Q2 anymore, or Q3. Sorry, you get knocked out in Q2, which is what happened here. And if it does start closing up consistently from now on to these sort of margins, where it's like there's now a 10th, 2/10 between the top 5 drivers.
Yeah,
Checo hasn't shown that he can get that close to Max in qualifying, so he's consistently going to be starting back.
And when we get to some of those circuits where you can play with a 2-stop or a 1-stopper player in both your drivers, if he's not there to help out, that's when it could be him not being there is what starts costing a race. And that's ultimately what affected for other Red Bull drivers in the past when they weren't there to help out.
Yeah.
That was the biggest critique.
Yeah, with Gasly and Albon and,
Like, imagine if we were in this situation back in the great title fight of 2021. Like, he was fundamental in France and in Abu Dhabi. If he wasn't there in either of those, history has changed, right?
Yep.
And you wouldn't say he's there right now. So, I don't know if you have anything to add for Perez, but it'll be very... interesting to see where it goes from here, because we still go back to this conversation where everyone says, great, get him out, but for who are we getting him out for
Ricardo? Well, I mean, we can
Sainz. No, they don't seem keen on that.
No.
We can. No,
they really don't seem keen on that for some reason. And when we had this, well, at least you posed the question to me as well, and I'm like, at this point, they're gonna put Lawson in there, right? Like, he's the best shout. Like they just seem... I'm not going to harp too much about this because this is I want to have like a separate conversation about
a dedicated mid-year thing when they probably still haven't sorted it.
Potentially post Monaco, if things haven't kicked off by then, we might try and record something in the 2-week break about the driver market. Sure. I think it's a real interesting conversation. But they obviously don't want to promote Yuki. Yuki looks like he might be potentially heading to Aston. He's got Honda seem to absolutely love him. He's completely on fire. He's now performing like where he should be. I think it's probably taken him a little bit longer than maybe most expected, but he's performing incredibly well. I guess we'll pivot into the RBs now, but they don't seem to want him in the top spot at Red Bull, like, at all. They've never shown any indication that they're going to put him in that seat regardless of how well he does. Ricciardo's definitely not doing well enough right now to earn that seat. If Perez drops off, the only person they really have left is Lawson, and they seem reluctant to put drivers straight into the Red Bull. So does that mean they're going to try and pull a driver from somewhere else again?
It's such a weird problem to have because you feel like they are, and yet when you look at things, it seems like they have so many decent drivers even just around the place. Like, you've got, as we say, even Lawson on the sidelines.
Yeah.
You've also got, we'll touch on, I think Hadjar is kind of killing it, and it's like he's going to fit into things. And even Iwasa just got a pole and a P2 in Super Formula.
Did he? That's
so
sick.
He's in the background, but, Lawson did super well in there, and already Iwasa's kind of killing it there as well. So he's even bumbling around in the background. If he wins the thing, it's hard to go, well, hold on, this is actually looking pretty good. He did the Gasly, he did the, and yet despite all of this, it's probably more likely they're going to pull from outside their fold because it's like all these drivers that need to be actually tested in the B team first. But both the drivers in the B team right now, it's like halfway through the year, pull them both out and just put in Lawson and put in Iwasa or Hadjar. There you go. Use the rest of the year to test them.
I mean, I feel like that might be the thing that Lawson has going for them is the fact that he has done, 3 or 4 Grand Prix already and he has almost proven himself. Like, it's not...
Well, it was within RB, so he would have been very,
yeah, exactly. And they've done half. Max was notoriously only in the Toro Rosso for like half a year before he got moved up to the Red Bull car. So they can, like, when they see enough talent, they'll let them make the step up. So the fact that he's already got a few races under his belt and is proven at that level from the get-go, maybe that's enough to... We'll get into this conversation later.
I know, it's interesting. It's amazing that, as we say, there's so many other Red Bull drivers in other series that are also just actually killing it, and yet none of them still just fit it because of how they've set that structure up. It's a predicament. We'll have to see.
But this all comes back to Checo obviously not pulling his weight. So this is,
and it's a saving grace that there is nothing easy to do. Otherwise, he would be straight out of there.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true. It's coming into the like purpose built racetracks as well, which is he's obviously big street track guy.
Yeah, this was supposed to be his strong start to the year.
Yes, and he's done fine, and now he's come to the purpose-built circuits, and the very first one he falters. So it's not good signs going forward. He, at least, moving into Monaco last year, he showed, before he made a really stupid error, he did show some signs of pace last year in Monaco. So maybe he can get it back. Like, he obviously knows how to hustle a car around Monaco. But it's getting to the point, at least last year he had, he had Alonso P2 for a bit, or like Perez P2, maybe Alonso P3, or it was like pretty close for a bit before Alonso slipped back. Leclerc's already P2 in the championship. Perez is already P3. If Ferrari stay as strong as they are now, Perez could very easily just not be P2. Like,
Norris is almost guaranteed to come through there as well.
Norris is only 6 points back, I think. 5 points.
Nothing.
6 points.
Yeah.
6 points. I can't count. Math is
with
hard.
His performance, he's gunning for that. Yeah, he's loved that P2 slot.
Yeah, exactly. So. And Sainz is only at 90. Like, he's at 93 points as well. With a race out. Like, he didn't even participate in one of the races in Saudi.
True.
So, that's 14 points. You could pretty easily say 14 points. That's a P3. Yeah, P3, P4. Yeah. He'd be pretty much right where Checo is as well. So, yeah, he's could slip back. Piastri's still a ways back, so he might get, he might be okay there, but he could slip back to 5th.
It's still a long season, though. It's not that far through. Was it only like a quarter or something? Now we're close to?
Yeah, it was 6 races, so it'd be it's a quarter of the season.
So there's still...
Christ.
I guess before we move on to RB, maybe the fact we haven't even mentioned them says a lot in that, we came into this weekend going, Mercedes show what they can do? And the general consensus is, I think we officially have a top 3 teams. And then Mercedes, and then
the rest.
Aston kind of ahead of the rest, but even they're starting to mix.
That's murky with RB coming through and Haas consistently there as well.
Exactly, yeah. So we don't even need to touch on them much because there wasn't much to say. Like, they had some muck around, which I guess they were just trying something, but they probably were just realizing they're in no man's land. Considering this was supposed to be part of their, as we said in our preview, their first step to move back into things, they're officially off the top, right? That you can't consider them as top 4. You don't even go, they're the worst of the top 4. You go, no, I think that's a top 3 now, actually.
Yep, I would agree. I think Mercedes are sort of in their own class at the moment. Maybe Aston can make their way back there. Maybe RB, with the rate they're improving, can start challenging the Mercedes, which it seems more realistic than Mercedes challenging the top 3 at this point. So, there's some real concerns for Mercedes.
Some real interest to see where they go from here.
Yeah, and Aston is, I think Aston in particular are in big trouble, because I think I could see them slipping.
Weird weekend.
Yeah.
Obviously confirming everyone's, I don't say everyone's fears, but you know what I mean. Like, fears going into the race of saying, do they actually understand how to upgrade their car? Because this was supposed to be sizable, and like, we only really had Stroll to base it on, and although he did all right, I think that was more due to a good strategy call rather than just the general car. And when you're like looking back to like last year and you think, you look at where the Aston was and where the McLaren was, and it's like, now you just look at going, if they were doing the right job, they should still probably be fighting for like podiums and that consistently. And even from the start of the year, when at least Alonso seemed to have a car he could still do some pretty cool things with. And I think this is this like the most bogey weekend Alonso has ever had in the team?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, it was dreadful. Like, even afterwards he kind of went, it was just a bad weekend. It's not like he was in his classic form when it starts going bad, where he goes, we've just got all this shit to sort out. It's all shit. He was like, it is what it is. So it's like, I think he just sucked for once this weekend. He just didn't get into a vibe.
Yeah.
He stuffed it around. He was in the dirt. He was just like, I don't know. I'm not having it. And if this was just an everyday weekend, okay, he's having it off. It's like, this was one of the big upgrade weekends, and immediately he's nowhere. It's like, oh boy, what's going on?
Yeah, because he re-signed with Aston, did he?
Yeah. For end of 2026,
5,
or was it intention to go into 26?
It might be an option.
I think he said it's for the new set. So
I wonder if he's starting to regret that decision. I don't know. Maybe he sees more than we do. But
a bigger plan thing. I guess that's what his words were. Was a bigger thing. I no idea if there's any rum to this. People are saying that, of course, Aston later in this year are going to set up their own wind tunnel. That's something they're waiting to do later in the year.
Okay.
And right now, they use the Mercedes wind tunnel. And people have asked them to say, hey, do you think there's any disadvantage of that? Right now, they're going, no issues. We know people talk about correlation. There's nothing.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But come when they start using their tunnel, they might go, there was a few issues, and we're glad now we're using our own tunnel.
That's actually really interesting. I didn't know they used Mercedes wind tunnel. That makes
I only found that out
a lot of sense.
It could just be coincidence, but
it's a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just put so many pieces together. Like, every other team's upgrades seem to work. Like, every other team, except for Mercedes and Aston. I just can't.
Yes.
We haven't really seen the fruits of maybe like Saubers and Williams, but
but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But like, every other team, it seems like their upgrades work, and the ones that use the Mercedes wind tunnel, their upgrades haven't seemed to translate to the track as yet.
So we'll have to see. And maybe Aston aren't that concerned because they know they're waiting for this second stage, their facility update with all the new bits, and then they're going, we're still just...
Yeah.
So... but as we say, it was interesting from Stroll how there was... The midfield fight was odd because you kind of had a split of drivers that pit quite early. And it especially mattered because we had... Yuki ultimately I think he ended up, because it was Hulk who was ahead of him early on, but then Yuki kind of ended up undercutting him.
Yeah, he did a really good undercut,
But then, if you didn't have a massive undercut or overcut to the car in front of you, even if it was a slower car, you get stuck behind them. So much so that Haas that was 5 seconds behind you is suddenly behind you. And then you're both stuck behind him for a while. And then even still you go, but when they all pit, they'll still come out behind them. But then you do what Stroll and I think one or two others might have done, where you extend for so long that when you come out, you have such a pace advantage that you can actually pass because you're so much quicker than them.
It's mainly traction out of the final corner because when those tires get old and really cold, it's like you have no traction coming out of the final reverser. But if you have fresh tires, you have that nice traction. You can stay right on, use the DRS, and that's really the only opportunity you could have, like you say, because of the big difference in the tire delta. So and again,
Yuki deserved still point that he got,
for sure.
But you'd argue still best of the rest, and arguably better than both the Astons. He probably should have been up there, and it. I wouldn't, you could tell he was trying really hard to pass. And even the move he ultimately made was actually quite swish. You could tell he just had enough pace and run out the corner to make the move. And you could tell he was finally. But you knew the damage was done. But it was still, I guess he looked strong. I think Ricciardo looks stronger, but he still isn't the stronger of the two. He was just stronger from his general comparison. Yeah. Which, as we talk about, the whole thing this season was if Ricciardo isn't the lead driver, consider it a bad performance, as close as he is. And he's not right now. So all you can do is applaud Yuki. And then, obviously, that says enough about the other driver.
I just realised you picked Ricciardo for P13 and he got P13. Oh, this is a disaster.
Spoilers!
I just realised. Oh, no.
Hey!
Oh, my lead. Okay.
I listen, I think you're doing all right.
Yeah.
I think you've got the Max Verstappen mindset. No, I lost the race. My lead.
Oh, God, it's the worst thing ever.
It's over. I've got to double down.
But, I mean, I think for the most part, there was a couple of things we can take from this. I think even though the race was just so boring. It's not even mid. I think it was very, very much below mid.
Sure.
I think you can still take some hope from it because it does seem like it's not just Red Bull and then two teams behind it. It does seem like it's pretty close to a top three teams, and Max does have to he can't just cruise out in front, at least based on this performance, based on Miami as well. He can't just cruise out in front and expect to win. He does have to be on it, and the second he's not on it or the second he falters, has a little error,
the team makes a bad strategy call,
particularly somewhere in Monaco coming up. Bad strategy call is the difference between a win and not a win very easily. He has to be on it and the team has to be on it. Otherwise, there's going to be a McLaren or there's going to be a Ferrari to pick up the pieces. So, probably not a Checo, but, we've been over that. So, but yeah, I mean, that's all the notes I had. I think there's still some reason to be positive going forward. But if you had anything else to add... Nothing else. That was it. All right.
I think we're good.
Well, let's move on to where all the action happened. The pinnacle of motorsport, Formula 2.
In comparison, sure, but I still wouldn't be clapping applauses about anything.
I said all the action. I didn't say it was a lot of action. I just said all the action happened there.
Sure.
But it was quite a bit more interesting. There was actually things that happened in both of the races of F2 and F3. We'll start with F2 because I think that's the one that we're probably both most excited about. Like you said, you've caught up now. The sprint race was that turn 1 incident was a bit mental. I had to really slow it down to figure out exactly what happened because I don't even think the commentators after many rewatches really got everything.
They didn't get the best angles either, but there was a whole chain of events that just kind of kicked off. And
I guess most importantly is Hajar and Hauger both got knocked out to, leading contenders for the title in F2. So it is only the sprints, so less points, but still very important for their title fights. And Hauger didn't end up getting a single point this weekend, which is big for him. Hajar was came back fighting in the feature race.
Turned it around nicely.
Yes, which seems to be what Hajar does. He gets absolutely shafted by something and then just comes back and wins the next race. But yeah, that I don't know if you had anything to add on the big lap 1 crash, but it was just a bit of a clusterfuck, eh?
It was. It seemed like it was still like a minor-ish touch, but when I referenced to say this is the second race that I've seen here in the second big crash, there was a very similar thing in the WEC where a car braked slightly too early, tapped into one, which tapped into another, which spun one sideways to another, and it just... Because it's actually quite a thin part of the track, and because of the nature of you like sort of curve just before you get there, and then it kind of like is an awkward like left corner anyway, and you can really only go like 2 wide, so you kind of have cars that are like pseudo 3 wide that try to sort it out, and if one of them can't, they're all so close together that they then all just bump and biff onto each other, and then they're in the gravel and whatnot. So, I mean, it was one of those incidents, I guess. I super was surprised we didn't see something happen in the F1 because it was their first race start, I guess, of the weekend, so it's not like they had a second race to then try to learn from, and yet they were all stupidly clean and well mannered into the first sector compared to, as we say, this F2 opening, which was
very true,
pretty messy in a few things here and there.
The only other note I had on the sprint race, it was a pretty F1 like race throughout most of it, except for right at the end. There were 2, particularly the one that Colapinto got on Aaron on the very final lap into turn. Is it T1 or T2? I guess it's probably T2A or
just call it
the chicane.
T1,
it's T1. Yeah, I hate that.
I hate
that all these little curves have corners. But I think you were saying to me is like you think that's probably the best move you've ever seen around that corner. The Colapinto one. It was a bloody good move. And I think it was one a few laps earlier that Maloney got on Cordial for P3 around not that chicane. And any move that's made around a corner that's not the T1, T2 chicane, generally pretty damn good. So, like both those moves alone were already more interesting than anything that happened in the F1 race. So... ergo, watch F2. A few more interesting things happened. The feature race was, I don't even know where to start here. First of all, let's start with Behrman, because Behrman was he should have won. He should have won. I'm not even gonna say poor Behrman. He was on fire. Got into the lead. Had huge amounts of pace, came into the pits, stalled twice, went to the back of the pack. Yep, he's still 20th on the leaderboard now because every time he's qualified high, he's either had to go to Formula One or he's just.
Whenever we ever seen a case where after a few rounds of F2, a driver is in 20th and you still go, yeah, he's probably done enough to get that Haas seat.
That's
like,
mental.
you'd still go this weekend.
That's
mental. That showed his pace, and you go, but he's 20th. Yeah, but what are you going to do? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So
well, they got a pole, but he didn't get any points from it.
Yeah.
But he then had the best start ever and had insane pace, but he stole it in the pit. But it's like, at least he did something which you basically couldn't do in F1. It's like stuff up the thing that you just do in F2. And it's fine. At least then you couldn't really do that in F1. we're even saying maybe it's because like he just did a practice with Haas. Maybe the cars, you know, you started up differently. And
well,
like,
to be fair,
for
the amount of times they stall in F2 with the shitty fucking double clutch system that they have, or whatever.
And that's if you're running it full time and that's all you're doing. Let alone you're jumping into the Ferrari and then you're jumping into a Haas and you're probably doing side duties and everything. So, it's whack. Like, you got to see, is he then just gonna like dominate it from here on out and then actually pick it up for the title, or is he just gonna be?
See, he's already a long way back now. Like,
could he get the record for finishing the lowest in the championship and still getting an F1 drive?
Seat,
like, like, we know when the third place driver gets it, we go, whoa, driver that came third getting a seat.
Yeah, that's
really?
already
like.
Yeah.
Where was Sargent? I think Albon was third. When
Sargent,
he got up, but I don't know what...
he was top 5, I think. He was in. Okay. He was particularly F3. He was close to winning the title with the in the Piastri year. So, he was right up there as well. People seem to forget that. Yep. Maybe was Sirotkin ever in? He was in F2. Maybe he was probably the...
Surely.
He must be one of the
still been... They're generally those P4-5 drivers that you struggle to remember a bit. But
I think, Tsunoda was only P4 or P5, I think, in the championship when he came in.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
So if that wasn't the only weird thing, I think really the pits defined a lot of drivers' weekends. Yeah. Like, we had... Zane Maloney, who then was looking pretty strong and very feisty, ultimately came in with a huge pack of cars, just had a tiny bit of stall in the pits, and then a whole train came through and there was no slot from him. So not only did he lose like 10 seconds overall, which, because they stopped first, it meant everyone else out there was going to get by him, he lost those few places as well. And as much as he tried his absolute damnedest to pass, just... Nothing there. On a weekend where, I think we've seen a weekend of his general trend where he's pretty damn good at making the move if he needs to. One of the
unless his name's Stanek, of course. In which case he's. I actually thought he might just like dive bomb from like half the straight back at one point on Stanek, and cause like a big accident because he was getting real frustrated behind him.
Which is understandable, I guess.
He like you were saying, he showed a huge amount of pace. It's one of those where I've probably got 3 or 4 drivers that I think it's probably the top 4 in the championship actually, who I think they probably have the pace to win it. I don't know if anyone else really has the consistent pace to do it.
Others may have like a sudden weekend where they're going to smash it out.
Exactly,
but when we're seeing drivers that need to be either...
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, when we need to see drivers that are either, like, consistent or have peaks enough. The likes of course, like Hadjar, right? Which he's more showing that those where he just has it and just guns it.
Yep. Then you have was going to say, like, your Colapintos who got the, the sprint races. Like, he's got that pace, but does he have it on a weekly basis? Does he have that every single time?
Weekly,
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But, Maloney and Hadjar in particular have both shown that, they are right up there consistently. Hadjar's been incredibly unlucky across 3 of the races so far. Both of the ones in Saudi where he had the same issue despite running really, really highly.
Yep.
And then obviously getting taken out in the sprint race here, which I don't think was his fault at all. It was kind of hard to see, but I don't think any of it was his fault either. So very, very unlucky for him. Maloney is just a name you constantly see there. Paul Aron, despite him not having won a race yet, is always there as well.
He is the definition of consistency. I mean, as you said, it would be nice to see him take it, but he still was out there and he still cashed in a P2, as we see the likes of Maloney and others that have then issues. If he's just cashing in like a P3, a P2 every race weekend,
he's going to be
right
there.
That's all you need to have that consistency. So yeah.
Yep. I was saying to you, I was a bit upset. I've developed a bit of a fondness for Paul Aron, and I've always really liked the high tech team. So seeing
he's got that underdog feel because preseason you went, he seems like he's just a driver out there, but he should be all right. Yeah. And yet, here he is, right? He's a rookie, right?
Yeah.
I think he's like the leader of the rookies. I think the standings normally same.
Yeah, because he was with Prema, I think, in F3. Yeah, no, I've developed a bit of a soft spot for him because I've always really liked High Tech, and Aaron is just he's just one of those drivers who's just going to grind away, and I think eventually he will get his first win. I think he's too strong not to. But yeah, the fact that he's not won a race yet and is still very much within touching distance of the championship lead shows just how strong he is. The other driver that had a very poor weekend, but I'd still rate him quite highly at the moment, is Dennis Hauger.
For sure.
The first 3 race weekends, he has shown huge pace. This weekend was a bit of an outlier for him, so hopefully he can bounce back, but he's still, he's 25, 26-ish points off the lead. It's not insurmountable.
There are a lot of points given away in F2, so
definitely. So he can definitely claw that back as well. But I has to be one of those 4 drivers. I can't really see anyone else doing it. Antonelli he's decent, but I just don't.
He's probably
going
to pick up a top 5 or 6 or something.
Yeah.
It was almost. I was trying to think. It was almost the inverse where we always saw in the last few weekends where when he was on a fresh set of tires, he had really good pace, but then he just seemed to screw the tires off.
Yep.
This weekend, he seemed to start instantly with like trains behind him, as if he was like then trying to keep the tires. Yeah, and it did mean he actually finished pretty decently here, probably because you can't really, overtake.
Yep.
So he just took care of them, and then he had enough to then pull ahead at the end when people were starting to pass, and he was just able to cash in those performances. He seems to be getting it together for qualifying, so in weekends like this, and maybe for Monaco again, he might actually score quite well if he can just quali well and just take care of the tires. As we get to maybe some more traditional tracks like the Monza and that, it'll be interesting to see if by then he's got it sorted out, or if he's just a sitting duck because he still can't sort out like a whole, feature race, how to manage the car. Because I feel like he's still adapting and learning. And again, as much pressure is being put on him, he is still from, Formula, what do they call it? Freaker background. Yeah. There's a, there's a second driver in the field that's actually also from Formula Regional, right?
No, Dirksen was from Regional, but he's F3. There was, what's his name?
Because he was being talked about a fair bit.
Oh wait, no, it is Dirksen. Yeah, it must be Dirksen.
I think it is
because he got P3 in the feature as well. I think he's come from Freaker. I want to say
Joshua Dirksen.
Yeah, because he's with AIX Racing, which, by the way, they get a P3 as their very first points.
On their rebrand.
Yeah, but like even as PHM.
He is, He's straight from Freaker as well. Yeah, so, it was a big thing for him. I like that they told the story where, even for he's from is it from Paraguay? Am I right in saying that?
Yes, Paraguay.
I thought I wrote it down.
Yeah,
yes, and even after the F2 test, basically the president of Paraguay flew over there to talk to him and to give him his good wishes.
Yeah, nice.
I think they might have said afterwards when they were like in the podium celebration. I don't know if you watched when they pulled up in the Parc Fermé.
No.
Dirksen looked like he'd just won the championship. He was like ecstatic. He had a flag. His team were like, obviously the team were excited just for their own performance, but he was going bonkers. And they were saying that after this F2 test they just had, literally the president from his country was there. They flew out to wherever they had it and was like wishing him good luck for the year.
That's
so
insane.
If that wasn't a boost for him, I don't know what was. Again, a driver which you go, okay, that's quite a big jump for him when he's not being talked about the likes of Antonelli, and yet he cashed in a third on a pretty difficult weekend where if you didn't qualify in the right place, you weren't going to get it.
It's also interesting
to see where it goes from here.
I was going to say, like, even AIX, PHM, so far this year, they've been pretty poor. Like back, they've always been this team, even before they rebranded when they were... before they were PHM, I am losing it. I can't remember. There were another team before that. They've had so many rebrands, but they're always one of those teams that sort of just field a couple of drivers and just sort of putter around towards the back. I think they had... God, I can't remember his name. Oh, this is gonna kill me. Okay, I'm gonna look it up. I have to look it up. Fucking, this is gonna kill me. You'll know his name because he was constantly crashing.
You know what's gonna kill you? The fact of how bad a start that Boccoletto had.
Oh yeah, but no, hey, yes, yep, yeah, yeah. He's.
But I did make a note. He actually made it up. He kind of,
yeah. He's another one that I was like, you probably got to keep an eye on because he's in the Invicta racing, right?
They're the yellow, yeah.
Their qualifying pace is unbelievable. Like
not
he's
bad.
consistently right up there.
Not bad.
So if he can get his starts, worked out and get his race pace, obviously his race pace was quite good this time around. But Roy Nassani is who I was thinking of. Roy Nassani was with PHM, yes, which was Charouz. There were Charouz before. Thank you. Gee, that was gonna fucking kill me if I didn't figure that out.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. But yeah, so like Charouz and PHM and now AIX, they're consistently like nowhere. So to even, they basically have not gotten points as PHM/AIX, and he gets a P3 as their very first points for the team. That's a hell of a result. Super, super impressive. I hope that means that AIX is now actually kind of competitive.
Got something, yeah.
That would be nice. Because I actually liked it. Taylor Barnard's the other driver for AIX as well, and I rate him quite highly as well. He did the Formula
He's not
E
just
rookie
a random pay driver
thing.
Yeah,
and he was one of the fastest drivers in that. With all the, there was a bunch of F2, F3 drivers there as well, and Taylor Barnard was right up there. So
I think that was
so it'd be nice to see that team, finally come into the points a bit more consistently. Would be really, really cool. But yeah.
I didn't see it, but apparently the Dams drivers that started near the back finished 7th and 8th. So I guess they found a way to do that. Although I didn't really check how, so good on to them.
Yeah, that's probably something that happened. Maybe you should, you listening and watching, you should go watch the race and tell us how it happened. Remind us.
And then of course we had also comedy in the pits. I remember I was actually a bit ahead of you for once. I know, weird to think that I was actually watching ahead of where you were for once. I remember, I think it was, like 6 p.m. or something. I was like, when is this race? And I was like, oh, it's lap 10. Oh, I gotta go back. I was like, oh, I missed out. Well, we had, I didn't note who the bloody drivers were that had
I've got it all
incident.
here. So,
okay, go for it.
Cordial came into the pits. It was quite a few drivers came into the pits, all at the same time. But Cordial came in. Left the pits with his rear right tyre not fully attached, and it flew off, hit Pepe Marti's mechanic for the rear left tyre. He just sort of shrugged it off, but it slowed down his pit stop, and he ended up putting Pepe Marti's rear left tyre on, and they just assumed I think he went to like bend down and move the tyre that he took off Marti's car out of the way, because, he got hit by a flying tyre from Cordial's car, so he sort of dropped the tyre he was grabbing off the car.
What's going on?
So he's sort of trying to move it out of the way. Hadn't done up the tyre that he had put onto the car. They dropped the car. He went off. Tyre comes off and rolls down the pit lane.
Pop.
So we had 2 cars, one with a rear left, one with a rear right, that did not have tyres in the very same round of pit stops. That was a bit. It looked amateurish, but it was just sort of a chain of events.
I guess it's both more likely to happen in these cars because you only have 1 mechanic per tire rather than 2. And you less have like the light system. It's more just like a lollipop man visually trying to check. And of course, there would have been more pressure here because really the only place that you can make or lose positions, which we saw, as we said, plenty of other drivers doing, was through the pits. So they would have A, been practicing a lot beforehand, and then B, just, take some anticipation to see. They can see it's almost all done.
Drop the
pray
jacks,
there's not any issues, and do the trolley and do the thing. And that meant that Because I think he even did get the wheel gun on Cordeel's car, but there must have just been
Cordeel's
something...
one did, yeah, but not on Marty's.
So that mustn't have been on fully. And then Marty's would say the guy kind of...
Yeah.
I think it like just hit the tire and then him, so fortunately he didn't take the full brunt of
thankfully.
it. And he stumbled a bit, but it set him like half a second behind the rest of them. And you could see he puts the tire on, and I think he goes to get the gun, and the car just goes, and then he's like,
"Oh god!"
And it's not even like he got the gun in. All he did was put it on, and obviously the front guy was just like, "What the hell's going on? Go!
Send it, people."
Happy that no one got hurt because that tire did bounce around a bit. I am sure that they might look at this and
they'd have to
discuss it. And again, the fact it was just 2 in a row, because at first you saw the first, and you heard them going, "We think there's a second car stuck there," and then you actually see it and you go,
"What the hell happened?"
I don't think we've had that before in this at all. This is a first. Like,
it's just a weird chain of events that just sort of happened to end up that way. But
it's great season for Pepe Marti.
Mate,
he's actually showing flashes of some pace here and there, and then just something else just says no.
Yeah,
bye.
I knew he was quick as well. Like, I actually talked about this pre-season. I'm like, Pepe Marti is gonna. I don't know.
Keep an eye on him.
I don't know if he'll like challenge for the championship, but he'll have some standout performances. He looks pretty damn quick, and he hasn't been able to show it off because he just keeps getting cucked by everything.
Absolutely. Dumpstered. It's not even like, I lost a few places.
He just takes out of the race.
He's getting smashed up. He's bottling it. He's getting his tire not screwed on.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I really hope that he can show something pretty soon. Because I like Pepe Marti. I thought I was watching him through F3 last year as well, and I'm like, he looks like he's got pace. He looks like a good man, and he's just getting completely shafted this year. So fingers crossed for him. The fortune changes a bit, but I mean, in terms of the standings, it's still super close. There's only like 9 points
for the top 3. It's pretty close.
Maloney, Aaron, Hadjar separated by about 9 points. Halga's a little bit further back, but again, no reason he can't make that up. But all to play for in the F2. Anything else you want to talk about F2? Otherwise, we'll briefly talk about F3.
No, you can have your 5 minutes of fame to debrief F3. The only thing I heard was that there was safety car after safety car in race 1. And I don't know if that's because it was exciting or just people being dumb, and it just
there was just a lot
repetitive
of
dumbness.
The first...
With a field that big and smaller cars are generally going to race better here, it doesn't surprise me to hear that.
The sprint race in particular, there was 4 safety cars, and then the real interesting one is actually the virtual safety car right at the end of the race. But so many safety cars, lots of offs, lots of things happening. The one of the, I think it was actually for the virtual safety car right at the end, but Luke Browning, who was at the time leading the championship, decided to go for quite possibly one of the stupidest moves I've ever seen. And took himself out of the race. Didn't take out. I think it was Cash Bastuka, who was dropping
the guy he was
back.
actually trying to make the move on. Yeah,
but he was like, I think he was starting from pole and just dropped back, tire management or whatever, or just didn't have the pace. But someone else just got past Stuka, and Browning tried to do a big swap back and try and, when they say when you get past, you get passed by 1, you get passed by 2. He was trying to take advantage of the fact that he was out of position. And tried to lunge down into the hairpin at the sort of the back of the circuit, T6 I think it is, and tried to send it down the inside, was nowhere near. Just went for this audacious move, was absolutely nowhere near, and took himself out and went to the gravel. So Browning looks quick. He made a lot of places. He looked really quick in the feature race, but silly mistake that ends up with him not leading the championship now, because he did that in the sprint race. So
all by himself.
Yes. But speaking of the virtual safety car, it was a real contentious issue, particularly right at the end of the race, because Browning going off, the reason I'm mentioning that is because that's what caused the virtual safety car, and it was on lap 17 of 18, I think it was. and Noel Leon was in the lead, and Ollie Goethe was right behind, and I think was closing. Like he was probably a second and a half back. But yeah, it was quite close. So the VSC, it was like, oh, it's probably gonna either end under VSC, or it was like, oh, there's no chance that Goethe can, grab the lead from Leon. But
Sure.
By the time the virtual safety car was ending, Goethe was like, somehow, I don't really understand how it happened and how he got away with it, but he was like right behind Leon, coming into it was ending, and it's like coming into, it was out of Ravazza 1 coming into Ravazza 2, I think it was, like literally
Sure.
last corner stuff.
Yeah.
And
Perfect timing.
safety car was ending, or virtual safety car was ending. Goethe gets like a huge jump on Leon. Leon doesn't react to the safety car ending immediately, and Goethe actually gets past and takes the win in the last corner. And yes,
so it ended on the last lap.
Yep. Ended on the very last lap. Yeah.
What on earth?
And he gets passed from P2 to P1 under the virtual safety car. And then you see Goethe gets a, like, I think right as he hits the checkered flag, it's like Goethe gets a penalty for a safety car infringement. And it's like, is this because he went too quickly after the the virtual safety car? And it's like, no, they went through the slow-mo. He went, at the right time. It was good timing. Did he gain too much time on land? Is that why he was so close to him? It was like, no.
It was for a prior safety car, right?
Yes, it was. Prior safety car, which was then rescinded post-race because it was like mental. So it was
blockbuster.
The last full safety car, it was a really interesting thing that happened, actually, because the top 3 must have been Leon, Goethe, and I forget who was P3, but they were, behind the safety car. They were traveling, and there was a big gap back to Stuka in P4 once the safety car peeled in and they were going green. There was like 1, 2, 3, and then there's just massive gap back to P4. And even the commentators were like, what is he doing? Why is there such a massive gap? Normally they're super, super bunched up.
And there are rules around that as well.
Yes. And as of apparently the start of 2024, you have to stay within 10 car lengths of the car in front and also the safety car. Apparently the safety car was actually going faster than the safety car Delta. So those cars, even though they were within 10 car limits, were technically doing the right thing, but they got pinged for a safety car infringement because they were going over the safety car Delta. And it's probably the reason why Stuka was also like quite far back from that top 3, because he
might have thought and gone, hold on, I need to respect this Delta or whatever else is happening.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about Leon,
odd.
but Goethe and whoever was in P3, it leaves my mind. But they both got pinged. Maybe it's Tim Tramnitz. That sounds about right. They both got pinged for a safety car infringement for that reason. And then they were like, after the race, like, no, this is, it got
they
rescinded.
Looked at it and went, hang on a second, something else has gone wrong.
Yeah, this isn't within, whatever our 2024 guidelines are about being within
Right.
10 car.
Right.
Yeah, so Goethe does end up getting it reinstated for the P1. So Leon went from having it to then losing it at the checkered flag, to then gaining it again, to then losing it, to then also getting a 5-second penalty himself post-race for weaving behind the safety car, which he's not supposed to do too. So he just got the big slam dunk in his face, Leon. So
bit of a learning weekend.
Yeah. It was a really, really strange scenario watching it all play out and not having any idea what the fuck was happening. But that's F3 for you. It always seems to be F3 that brings out these very odd scenarios.
Well, there's enough cars and enough rookies out there, young guys, that put them on the big stage and
want to prove themselves.
Yeah.
So in the feature race, it was more, business as usual, just racing. There was actually quite a lot of overtakes in this one. Again, F3, the cars just sort of lend themselves around these sort of circuits like we saw in Australia.
Smaller cars, less powerful, and it works perfectly.
Exactly. Ole Goethe, once again, makes huge moves. He's looking really, really quick as well. I think he got up to like P2 in the first... I don't even know, like not many laps from P7 from where he qualified.
Wow.
So Fornaroli was looking really, really good. He had another really odd thing happen I've never seen before. He looked well on his way to like winning this race. Out in P1, had on the pit straight, his engine just died. Like just died out of nowhere. It's like, and he got overtaken, dropped down to P5, comes into the chicane, engine fires back up, completely fine again, makes his way back up to P2. And it's like,
what?
I've never seen that before. Normally when the engine goes, it just goes, but it just went, and then it just fired back up all of a sudden, but not before he dropped from P1 to P5. So, really
he still would have been salty about that, but I guess happy it wasn't a full retirement. So you also count yourself lucky and unlucky at the same time.
Yeah, very, very true. But he was close to even getting up to P1, like getting back past Goethe. So yeah, massive pace from Fornaroli. That Trident in particular looks super quick. Oh, sorry, not Goethe was P2 and Megatunif got the P1, which was another Trident. So yeah, Trident looks fucking mega in the F3 again this year, like they were last year. So I think Fornaroli is definitely the strongest of the Trident drivers for sure. I think he does end up top of the standings after Browning's weird, dive, sort of half, not really dive in the sprint. Yeah, he's 3 points ahead. So, yeah, I think if Fornaroli can keep doing what he's doing and just picking up the pieces and hopefully have less engine cuts, he'll probably take the title, I think. But, yeah, I think Browning and Bogdanovic and Mini and Goethe, for that matter, are all pretty close behind and all pretty quick in their own right as well. So, yeah, that was it for my F3 spiel. But, again, just watch it. There's so much more happening than what I'm even talking about. It's just so many weird oddities that you just don't see in things like Formula 1 or even Formula 2. So, and they're pretty quick races. They're half-hour races. So just watch them. They're good.
I feel like you got to commit that much to it. Yeah.
No, they're good value. But yeah, I don't know. Did you want to add anything else, or do you want to wrap this up?
I think it's okay. The only other thought I had is when you mentioned, and I mean you didn't mention, but you indirectly mentioned Vishor.
Oh, yes, yep.
Where's he been? Oopsie, we're not even talking about him.
Yeah,
Oh, get it together, son.
He'll be
anyway.
back. He'll be back.
He'll be back.
I believe.
Season 3, baby.
I believe in
He's
Richard.
gonna pull the Zhao Guan Yu and show his stuff in season 3.
Oh, he might. Well, how many seasons has he had?
I feel like this is his second.
Oh, I think
anyway, I don't want to. This podcast has gone on long enough. I shouldn't have said that.
All right.
I think we might have talked more about F2 than F1.
We sure did. I knew it was going to happen.
Yes.
Nope,
I'll let you outro.
No, it's all good. That's it from us. We're quick turnaround to Monaco. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Let us know what your thoughts are on this race, even though I probably know. Let us know your thoughts on the F2 and the F3 as well, where we'll like talking about that. And now that you're caught up with the F2, we'll probably talk about it a bit more. I think we're going back to more F2, F3 for Monaco as well. It's another F1, 2, 3 weekend in Monaco.
Definitely 2. I never remember where the 3s are.
I did see it was 3.
Yeah,
so we got all 3 of them again.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah, catch up on it because we're going back there again to all 3 categories. But thanks everyone for listening and or watching, and we'll see you very, very soon for our Monaco preview. Bye-bye.